It is May 1st, and we are here with another episode of Nightmares and Scares. My name is Matt, and with me is
Dan the Horror Man.
Dan. Dan, the Horror Man. How are you, sir?
I'm doing awesome, sir. Glad to be here without any technical difficulties and excited to talk about what we've got going on today.
You forgot that. Oh, you forgot already what we're talking about. Spoilers. It's in our backdrop. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about our very first slasher film on the show. For a horror show or podcast, however you want to refer to us as, it's taken us 9 episodes to get to a slasher film, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But I'm excited. But of course, where are my manners? Everyone, welcome to Nightmares and Scares, the show where you can grab your popcorn and your PJs, and we invite you to a place where every day is Halloween. A boy's best friend is always his mother, and that monster under the bed, it is absolutely real. One of these days, I'm going to say that and get it just right without hesitating or stuttering. um, so, Dan, we're talking about urban legend. Had you ever seen this before?
Yes, a long time ago, and again, not one I really come back to view very often.
Same. I don't think anyone does.
I
No,
don't
no.
know. I've
This
heard
movie,
that.
this movie has quite a little bit of a cult following.
Yep, I think that is exactly, and we can't necessarily call it a cult classic, though we can get into that a little bit because it was made with a budget of $14 million, ended up pulling in about 72 million worldwide.
Whew. Uh, I guess that's why we got a couple sequels. Um, just how we like to do, kick things off with just initial reactions. Dan, what did you, upon revisit, how did you initially feel after you finished watching Urban Legend for the first time in many years?
Well, I will tell you, it reminded me of kind of the specific genre of film, really inspired by the meta thinking of Scream. It's impossible to watch like this movie or I Know What You Did Last Summer without realizing that where the success of Scream kind of inspired movies like this to try to ride their coattails. And even though this did, in some ways, it tried to be meta, but it was different about it. I think the biggest draw that they had is that they tried to incorporate actual urban legends into this. And it's kind of funny because you watch it and the urban legends that they talk about, we've all heard. I don't necessarily think that, oh, yeah, that happened in my neighborhood, but there are things that we've all heard and believe. So it's pretty cool that they worked that in there. And I know that this inspired a couple sequels. So I was looking forward to giving it another look. And I mean, when you look at the star power this had, even before some of them had become like to their highest point, we also had a lot of icons that were involved in the horror industry here. So definitely something to revisit and take a look at overall. How about you, Matt?
Sure. No, I'm glad you mentioned the star power. That's exactly what I was going to mention. The star power in this thing is crazy. We're going to go over the cast in just a second here, but no, this is one of those movies that, and I kind of remembered it being like this, and then it was totally true when I went back to it. But it's one of those movies that's not really good, but it's a lot of fun to watch. I think that's just that I think that describes it best for me. That like it's one of those movies that if you're going into it and watching it as a film connoisseur, you're gonna be like, yikes. If you're even watching it as like someone that really, if you're watching someone that really digs the horror genre, you still may even go, yikes. But if you're just watching it for fun, just a popcorn flick, just a Friday night, got nothing else to do, it can be a lot of fun. And even if you're a fan of like the just a slasher genre, or even like the the 90s, or even the cheesy 80 slashers, I think this could be a lot of fun. So that's that's where I'm at with it. Um so Of course, we're talking about the first film, Urban Legend. It was directed by Jamie Blanks. Jamie Blanks went on to direct also the other horror film Valentine from the early 2000s. I'm not sure if you ever saw that. Did a couple other things, Long Weekend, Storm Warning. But the film runs at about 100 minutes, which, if you are familiar with us, you know that's right in our wheelhouse. That's just 10 minutes over that 90-minute goal that we aim for.
Sorry.
So, it's as far as length, I think it was perfect. And then the film tells about a college campus that is plagued by a vicious serial killer murdering students in ways that correspond to various urban legends. And then, as we talked about, the cast in this thing is insane. It is starring Alicia Witt as Natalie, and you may know her from other films such as Vanilla Sky, the Twin Peaks movie, the original 1984 Dune. Um, then we've got Jared Leto, hello, um, Fight Club, American Psycho, Blade Runner 2049, Suicide Squad, Dallas Buyers Club. I could go on forever. Um, we got Rebecca Gayheart, who is a face that you probably have definitely seen, but don't really know from where. Well, you've seen her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Scream 2. Um, of course, she appears as she has a brief appearance in the sequel to this, Urban Legends Final Cut, and she also appeared in the film Jawbreaker. Along with that, we've got Michael Rosenbaum, who's most known for his role of Lex Luthor in the TV show Smallville. We have Tara Reid, who is known for the American Pie films. And we've got, of course, as Dan mentioned, some horror icons in here that were already well established. We've got Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger himself from the Nightmare on Elm Street series. We've got Brad Dourif, Chucky himself in a brief cameo. And then we've got Danielle Harris, who most people in the horror community know who this is. She, of course, played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween's 4 and 5, and then later returned to the Halloween franchise for the Rob Zombie remakes. So, and she's also done loads of other horror films. So Danielle Harris is one that we will probably be coming or mentioning about a lot as we go through some horror films. With that, it's time to turn it over to Dan for some stats. I know there's quite a bit. Dan, what do we got for some stats?
Well, not so many stats as interesting facts. So the first being that on top of the star power, this had already pretty much brought in the ones that Matt had just gone over. Um, they did also try to get Jennifer Love Hewitt, who they wanted to cast the role of Natalie Simon, but ultimately she decided to turn down the role because she didn't want to be typecasted as a scream queen. It was largely due, in fact, and with her work, I Know What You Did Last Summer, that came out in 1997. They also offered another big name in the horror industry, which is just amazing. You already had like as many horror icons as you did, but Sarah Michelle Gellar was or had initially accepted the role of Sasha, but ended up backing out due to schedule conflicts with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But wouldn't that have been interesting to see from that?
For
A couple
sure.
interesting things. So really, the director, Mr. Banks, he was trying to prove to his production company that he was, going to be an okay bet as far as the director on this film. So he chose to film the opening sequence first, which I guess makes sense. And he was able to show them that to try to get their backing as far as the rest of the film. Say, okay, I'm a pretty good director. This with the tone I want to take with the movie and all that fun stuff. Overall, composer Christopher Young borrowed a theme from a film that he composed 4 years prior, Dream Lover, starring James Spader and Madden Amick, which the opening titles featured female vocalises, just like this film does as well. And as far as like the writing and everything else in here, it was again, or one interesting fact I did find is that the folks involved in this actually acquired the rights to several urban legends, like those of razor blades and candy, and a whole bunch of others that we would, see in the course of the movie. I guess it's just interesting that they went that
So
far. track that down.
Urban legends are copyrighted? Is that what I'm hearing?
Apparently, it's possible. It does seem that they were, after that to get rights to those stories, or at least maybe to present them. I'd be interested to look into that a little bit further.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh.
And this was originally supposed to release earlier than it did, but unfortunately, due to the Columbine massacre, this was pushed further back.
Hmm. I did not know that. I didn't know any of those things you mentioned actually. So there we go. Give it up for Dan with the stats.
Mm.
We're gonna jump into this thing, urban legend. This is a movie. I'm gonna jump first, and then I'll pass it over to Dan, uh, as I normally do when I host these things. This movie, as I mentioned, really isn't a great movie, but it's a fun movie, and I love watching it. And it's just a fun slasher. It's got the '90s vibe. It's got '90s all over it. You know, one of the things that Dan had mentioned is that you watch this and you definitely feel the presence of Scream. Um, you can't you can't watch this and not be like, "Oh, well, clearly this took inspiration from Scream." It's all those from like Scream. So Scream was what, 95, 96. So from that point on, all of the horror movies from the rest of the late '90s all kind of had a very similar feel, just kind of in the same way that the horror films from the early 2000s all kind of feel the same. It was definitely a mood, it was a tone, it was a vibe, it was a choice, and some of those films worked and some of them don't. Um, I thought that there was some really good stuff in here. I thought the premise was cool. Um, there was some very like basic slasher stuff. It was very predictable. Um, Dan, and I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. How did you feel about the end reveal about the killer?
Well, it's kind of funny. I guess if we both knew Latin, apparently the motto to Pendleton translates to the best friend did it. But honestly, I thought that was probably one of the better parts of this film is that it played out to be her because honestly, not watching this in a while, I really didn't remember who did it. And for a while, I'm sitting back there and I'm like, it had to be Leto's character. It had to be. And then
Right.
when I like the point I changed my mind on that is actually when Wexler's body, so Robert Englund's body was found in the back of his car. I'm like, that's too on the nose. He didn't do it. And I'm like, it had to be the friend then. And then there's also a shot where like she's in, or I guess it is her. She's in the parka, and you can tell like when she waves, like you can tell her fingers were a little more dainty or small. I'm sitting there like, okay, so it had to be her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do think as far as like horror slasher films go, it definitely had a lot of predictability. But I'm with you as far as like if especially if you haven't seen this in a while or if you've never seen this, I think they did do a good job of like kind of keeping you guessing as to who it was going to be. You know, at one point you do think it's Robert Englund, but at the same time, I don't think Robert Englund's ever appeared in another film aside from Nightmare on Elm Street. I could be wrong about this, where he's actually the villain. Like, like usually he plays a character that you think is gonna be the bad guy or is kinda creepy, but he never ends up actually being the guy. Again, I could be totally wrong, but the things that I've seen him in, that's just how it is. Um, and then, like you said, that you think you get some vibes from Jared Leto, and then at one point you think Jared Leto maybe is even in on it with her. And
If they had done that though, it would have been so blatantly like a rip of Scream that
yeah,
it probably would have took a little bit of ching in its armor there. Like it would have so I don't know.
yeah. So I mean, I think it's one that is definitely forgotten and not talked about as much. And whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, is for you, the viewers, to decide, and for us here to decide. I know I'll give my answer here when we give our ratings, but I'm going to pass over to Dan. So, Dan, tell us a little bit more about what you thought.
So overall, I feel that the story and the writing in this were really good. I think that overall, the thought or the idea of incorporating different urban legends to play out and how certain people are murdered worked really well. We did have some callbacks of prank calls and things that we see in Scream. I was kind of curious why they ended up going with the costume for the killer that they ended up going with, but did find out later that this was originally supposed to be filmed in the winter and everyone was going to be wearing winter clothes. So it makes a little more sense that she's got the lined, jacket and everything on her. Also thought it was fun, like how much thought they put into this. So originally in the scene, they were looking for an SUV. They had gone with a Land Rover, and they tried to get the actress to swing the axe inside the car, and there wasn't enough room to do it in a Land Rover, so they ended up doing the shoot in a 4x4, Ford Explorer that had more room to actually swing. So I thought that was kind of cool that they thought that far into it. A lot of the choices they decided to make the murders happen off screen, so there wasn't a lot of gore, violence, and things that you see here, other than the one scene with the head rolling. I think that was probably the most intense part of it that we got outside of, putting animals in microwaves. But I think that where my issues are with this film aren't really with the supporting actors so much, but the acting. Well, I will say the acting pretty much was not good for the first 2/3 of the movie. And then I think in the last third of the movie, I think that's where things really came together, and it felt like, okay, this is like got a spark. This has got something interesting going on, and even down to like some of the cheesiness. There were some areas of cheese that was just not needed, and it was definitely overplayed. I think a little bit, but again, kudos to the story. My biggest thing before I throw it back to you, and I'll ask you a question. My biggest fault with this was actually the acting of the lead actress. I really didn't believe in her. I really didn't care one way or
Yes,
another if she was taken out or not. And other than her, I feel like anybody else could have been in that role, and this movie could have been 10 times better.
I agree. No hate on, what was it, Alicia Witt. I haven't seen her in a lot of other things, so I'm not really familiar with how she as an actor, but I agree. She was the weakest performance here for me, and I just was thinking as I was watching, like, wow, like, for your for your star, for your lead character, I felt like they either could have gotten someone stronger or maybe I don't know what happened, if it was the writing of the character or if it was just her performance or maybe she was I can't I'm just it's all speculation. But it definitely felt like, wow, this is out of everyone here, she stands out as like kind of cringy to watch at times.
Yeah,
Um
agreed.
no. So I think we're already are we ready to put a nail in this? No pun intended?
Sure. And I guess it's up to you what we want to rate this, Matt. How do we want to rate this today?
Why is it always up to me?
It's never
Uh,
up to you.
um, yeah, I mean, do we wanna do, like, 1 out of 10, like, rolling heads? Do we wanna do 1 out of 10, dogs in the microwave? I kinda
Blood,
like that
yeah,
one.
no, let's not do that. Let's do blood-soaked winter coats. How about that?
But
Blood-soaked winter
see, this is why I throw out the suggestions, but you actually end up picking the one that we go with.
coats.
So, I'm okay with that. What is it? Blood-soaked winter coats?
Blood-soaked winter coats is where we're at.
Okay, so 1 out of 10 blood-soaked winter coats. Um, Again, I really enjoy this movie. It's a lot of fun, but as a film, I have to look at it 'cause I'd be a hypocrite on other things that I've talked about if I rated this just for the fun level. So as a film, I have to look at it as what it is, and so I'm gonna go 5 blood-soaked, winter jackets or whatever we said. I forgot that quick, but I'm gonna go 5 out of 10 for this. How about you?
Can't believe I'm disagreeing with you again. This is going to be the biggest disagreement. This is a 10 out of 10. Bloodsoaked Winter. No, just kidding.
I was gonna
No.
say, there's no way.
Got your hopes up there, guys. If you're a diehard fan of this, unfortunately, I am not. I think that the story was again really good. It was in a lot of ways fresh. It was meta, but it wasn't overdone. It was very straight edge in terms of slasher films, and a lot of things that you would find in the older slasher films, you'll also find here. Again, the twist I think was done well, and it's not a lot of times where I sit down nowadays and can watch a horror movie and be like, "Oh yeah, I don't know who did this." Most of the time, it's obvious, even though they try to make it not obvious. It's like, "Oh, well, this person's always absent," or blah blah blah. They
Yeah.
just make it conspicuous. But this was well done. But the acting, like I said, overall just killed it, killed it, killed it, killed it, killed it dead for me. And it does sound like they had tried to cast some other folks for this role. I think it could have definitely been that. That's actually how I felt watching this movie. Is how that photo is. So overall, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give Urban Legend 4 out of 10 blood-soaked coats.
Wow. I thought we might be on par with one another there for the first time, but now we're still a little off. But we're closer than I think we've been for a while. So 4 out of 10 blood-soaked winter coats. I'm at a 5 out of 10. I just want to say there's a lot of things going for this movie.
There's
But
so much like if you go on IMDb, guys, go look at how many things that they tried to incorporate, little factoids or little information. I think it was very well thought out. And I think a lot of things were planned, even like the motto for the university that we just talked about. The best friend did it. And just like the things that were written on the walls. This was something that one took a lot of things from the culture and put into it, the horror culture, and also has put out almost just as much. And like I know where it had the blood soaked writing on the wall that was incorporated apparently in like a later supernatural episode in 2005. Like they borrowed from that. Some of the opening sequence and things have been tried to be emulated in other works. So go check it out. It's inspired a lot. And when you have a lot of horror icons in the same place, like you said, it's worth watching just for that. So,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we didn't really even touch on that. I mean, we've got Chucky and Freddy in the same movie. They don't share any screen time, and Brad Dourif is extremely short, basically a cameo. But I mean, you got just that alone. You've got those two massive slasher legends in this, along with Danielle Harris, who is a horror icon in her own right, who has a good bit of screen time. I almost say between the three of those, she probably has most screen time. I don't maybe I don't between her and Robert Englund. But yeah, I mean, just it's yeah. I don't want anyone to like because I know people love this movie. I don't want anyone to think that I'm crapping on this movie because
he is though, guys.
I
He,
am
he is
crapping on
though.
it for what
He's
it is,
cracked on it.
but for what it is, I really do enjoy it. So um,
I hate it, but I enjoy it. It's
no,
great, but
I
uh,
don't hate it. I don't hate it. This is whereas what did I give Cabin in the Woods for?
it was probably around there, yeah.
Yeah, so this is really not that far. So there's I mean, yeah, like I
Yeah.
gave that
So
a
yeah, that
4.
movie he literally hates, and he
I
gave
d
this one point above
I
that.
know, I gave Cabin in the Woods 4, and I think it's a dumpster fire of a film, but here we're
Well,
at
this is
Urban
slightly
Legend.
less of a dumpster fire, but awesome.
But
To me, and
this
that's
is more my speed. So this is
it's
more
so
like what
sad
I'm
because
into.
it's like I feel like I could be on board with it. It's just that just one actress, like, and it's just going to be interesting as we go further into this because we know like the leading ladies of horror, and if
Yeah.
this had been done well
Oh, you coulda had a whole new horror, Final Girl.
through today,
Yeah. Yeah, I
so
mean, there's 3 of these movies, and who's to say that she couldn't have continued, and because I don't Alicia Witt is not in any of the sequels. The only one that appears in the sequels is Rebecca Gayheart, who is the spoilers is the reveals to be the killer. But she only has a very super brief appearance in the second film. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, just that there's a lot
no
of
Joshua
potential here.
Jackson, guys,
No Joshua Jackson. That was
he's
another thing we
dead.
didn't talk about. Yeah,
And
him and
that's a
his
shame though, because I feel like out of all the actors I would have seen like to have seen more out of would have been him in particular. Like if
I
we had
agree,
left
and
him
this was
alive,
right on the height of Dawson's Creek. Like, I'm surprised they killed him off, honestly. Like, I
and
feel
they
like they
left
could've.
Jared Leto.
Yeah, yeah, but, here we are. You wanna get into some real reviews?
Yeah, let's get to it.
So if you aren't familiar with us, then each and every episode we pull a review from the interwebs, one 5-star review and one-star review, so that way your voices can be heard. So you're not just hearing our voices, even though you are hearing our voices read your voice.
Quite a
Um,
bit.
yes. Dan, last time I think I took the 5-star and you took the 1-star.
I don't remember anymore, man.
We'll
That's
go
all
we'll go
blur.
with it. We'll go with it. So this time I'm gonna give you the 5-star, I'm gonna take the 1-star. The 1
Oh
star actually
boy.
comes from the 1-star actually comes from Letterboxd, as I could not find a single 1-star
We
review
we
on
need to
Google.
clarify while we're here though. Like we do a scale of 1 to 10. The scales
Yes,
that we're reading of
is a
are
5, 1
1
to
to 5.
5.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. So again, I could not find a single 1-star review on Google for this.
that's
So I had
strange.
to go to Old Faithful Letterboxd, which is one of my favorite apps. Follow me if you're on there. Here is our 1-star review. This is from Nico Ramses on August 21st of 2021. Urban legend is a type of slasher that is so abysmally bad that it's hard to even enjoy it ironically. I don't have much to say about this movie other than one piece of advice. If you're going to make a movie about a serial killer who murders people based off of various urban legends, at least use some interesting urban legends. They really scrapped the bottom of the barrel for this movie. Spoilers, maybe I'm just upset because I was hoping to see Jared Leto get butchered and wasn't given the satisfaction I deserved. But at least I got American Psycho to satisfy that desire. Whoo! some some heat for Jared Leto there.
That about scraping the bottom of the barrel. And yeah, you could have gone into a lot more urban legends and played into that more. It could have been
Yeah.
cooler, especially if you got rights to them. What the heck?
Yeah, I didn't know those were copyrighted. Like, that kind of messes with my mind. Like, I thought they're just like stories, but I guess.
We'll have somebody fact check this, and one of our viewers will be like, "Nah, that's bullcrap."
Yeah. Yeah. So Dan, here's your 5-star review.
Let's do it. Urban Legend is a great movie. Rebecca Gayheart had such an amazing performance along with Jared Leto. Great way to get into the Halloween fall spirit. LOL. This movie had a lot of twists and turns and overall was very suspenseful. I would really recommend watching if you like movies like Scream 2, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and etc. It's also that 90s movie aesthetic, so that's a plus. I'd definitely watch it again.
Were you reading it in the voice of Zara?
Yes, I was trying to.
Because I got that vibe.
I'm glad you got that vibe.
Yes.
On top of the
Yes.
90s vibe you got earlier from Urban Legend, I'm glad you got the Zara vibe.
Yes.
So,
So thank you for the reviews. We are about to wrap things up here, but before we do, we're going to announce what we're going to be talking about next. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to announce, because I've announced the last couple episodes what we're doing next. So, Dan, what are we doing next?
it's kind of interesting because Matt likes to bring us typically the more classic horror movies, and then I like to go on the more fringe ones. And now I feel like Matt brought us a fringe one, so I'm more inclined to bring us a more classic horror movie. So I want to go with maybe suspense horror thriller. We're gonna go with The Sixth Sense.
Ooh, I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. I could almost do a whole episode on that right now. Like, without even rewatching, because I've seen it so many times. I love that movie.
So
Spoilers
get
for
ready
the
for the
episode.
content, guys.
Spoilers for the episode. I love that movie. And last time I said I love that movie, I had a very, very high rating. And I love The Sixth Sense more than I love the other one that I was talking about.
So we're gonna finally get a 10 out of Matt.
Maybe.
Hmm.
Um, so ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time here, we thank you so much. We hope you stick around, check out the channel, see what else we might have talked about that you might enjoy. Please hit subscribe, click the notification bell so you get alerted each and every time that we post a video. We try to do this throughout the week, a couple times a week. And then if you're a returning customer, thank you so much for joining us each and every week. We welcome you. Our new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing. We see you, we hear you. Your comments are appreciated. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. If you have movie suggestions that you'd like to see us talk about in the future, let us know. Send us a comment, and we'll definitely get on those probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
We
please
got a couple.
subscribe to us, guys. Help us out because we'd really like to get some money off of this and buy ourselves hair plugs.
uh, No, so no, we got a lot of fun things planned for this channel for this show. We think we've talked about it a few times. We've got some trips lined up for different conventions and maybe even some horror filming locations.
Or
So
some horror store grand openings.
yes, yes, there's a certain store that opens every year around Halloween time. We might go check out and do a whole episode on. Um, So definitely stick with us, and then let us know what you want to see. If you have ideas, our top 5 scary kids episode kind of didn't do so well. So if you're like, nah, f all that,
You
let
guys
us
have
know.
enough scary kids in your own personal life that you don't need to hear us talking about them. That's okay.
Yeah, or if you'd rather us do something else, count down something else, or say never again a countdown. Don't ever do a countdown again. Let us know. Um, until then, Dan, any final thoughts? Any final words?
No, just recapping what you said. Thank you to everybody who actually takes the time to sit through these videos, and I'm more interested in the comments and the feedback. I know we had one big comment on one of the videos. I think I've already answered that on the last video we filmed. So it was about interview with the vampire. Somebody put some information out there. I might start writing back to the comments. Maybe that would be
You
easier.
should. You should.
But overall, guys, write us. Write what you agree with us about. Write what you disagree with us about. Definitely want to hear, some of your feedback, your opinions. Honestly, it helps us grow. I am honestly, I just watch movies for fun. Matt is an aspiring filmmaker. He's actually filming something. So it was interesting too, Matt, on this Urban Legends. I think it was filmed over the course of like 56 days.
Hmm.
So overall, not crazy as in
No.
terms of how much time it took, but I mean, yeah, give us your feedback. It only helps me grow, give better feedback moving forward, and thank you for everybody who supports us.
Everybody have a great week. Join us next time as we talk about the Sixth Sense. But until then, we'll see you in your nightmares.